Hello everyone, today I am going to discuss with you chapter 15 probability. So let's start. So first is experiment. What is experiment? The word experiment means an operation which can produce well-defined outcomes. And there are two types of experiment. First is the deterministic experiment and the second is probabilistic or random experiment. So let's understand what is deterministic experiment. So those experiment which when repeated under identical conditions and produce the same result or outcome are known as deterministic experiment. For example, like physics or chemistry experiments performed under identical conditions, right? The second is probabilistic or random experiment. So in an experiment when repeated under identical conditions don't produce the same outcomes every time. For example, in tossing a coin, one is not sure that if a head or a tail will be obtained, so it is a random experiment. Next is what? Sample space. The set of all possible outcomes of random experiment is known as sample space, and it is generally denoted by S. For example, when a dice is tossed, then sample spaces are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Event. What is event? A subset of sample space associated with a random experiment is called an event. For example, in tossing a dice, getting an even number is an event. So let's understand what is favorable event. So let S be a sample space associated with a random experiment and A be event associated with the random experiment. The elementary event belonging to A are known as favorable events to the events A. For example, in throwing a pair of dice, A is defined by getting 8 as the sum. Then following elementary events are as outcomes: 2, 6, 3, 5, 4, 4, 5, 3, 6, 2. So there are 5 elementary events favorable to event A. So now we discuss about probability. So if there are n elementary events associated with a random experiment and m of them are favorable to an event A, then the probability of happening or occurrence of event A is denoted by P of A. So probability P of A equals to number of favorable outcomes upon total number of outcomes. Understand with an example: two coins are tossed simultaneously 500 times and we get two heads 105 times, one head 275 times and no head 120 times. Find the probability of occurrence of each of these events. So we know total outcomes. Okay, total outcomes given hai. So we write here total outcomes, which is equal to 500. Then the first is probability of getting two heads, given two heads, and that is 105 times, right? So number of favorable outcomes, is equals to 105. So what will be the probability of getting two heads? So two heads is equals to number of favorable outcomes, so which is 105 upon 500. Yeah, when we divide it, we will get here 0.21. Okay, and the second part is one head, so that is 275 times we get one head. Okay, so what is number of favorable outcomes here? So number of favorable outcomes is equals to 275. So what will be the probability of getting one head? That is equals to number of favorable outcomes, which is 275 and then divided by 500. So when we divide 275 by 500, then we get 0.55. 0.55. Now the third one is no head. How many times we get no head? That is 120 times. So what is favorable outcomes? Number of favorable outcomes, that is equals to 120. So probability of getting no head is equals to favorable number of favorable outcomes upon total number of outcomes. So when we divide 120 by 500, then we get 0.24. So in today's video बस इतना ही. We'll meet you in next video. So thank you everyone.